I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Byron King of Paradigm Press, which is formerly Agora Financial. He's a longtime newsletter writer and a geologist who works with georecords. Byron, thank you so much for being here. Great to have you.
Hi, Charlotte. It's good to be with you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, anybody who's watching. Good to be with you.
Really good to be catching up. It's been a few months since we crossed paths. I believe our last time talking was at PDAC. And you've just returned from a trip up to the Yukon, so touring mine sites up there. And we're going to talk about that and go into everything that's happening up there. I'm thinking probably the best place to start, the thing that people are probably thinking about, is the incident that happened up at Victoria Gold. So I believe you're familiar with the company. And I'm wondering if we could just talk about what we know so far about what's going on there and takeaways that you have from this situation.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yes, I just recently was up in the Yukon for a week on a tour of numerous exploration projects, courtesy of the Yukon Mining Alliance, which is a government industry kind of group that helps to arrange to show off what the Yukon has to offer. For people who are watching here, you may be familiar, or maybe not, but there's a company up there called Victoria Gold, which is it's an operating mine up until very recently when they had an industrial accident. I have followed Victoria Gold literally since it was an advanced stage exploration place. It was brown stains on the side of a mountain, basically. Mountain was covered with trees, and I watched them develop everything, go through the development process. Numerous visits to the site, many discussions with management over the years, watched them raise the money and build this project in 2000, like 18, 19, thereabouts, as big construction. At one point, it was the largest capital project in Canada. They were spending $1 million a day building this thing up. Anyhow, they got it up and running. They were working in and around about 100, let's say 140,000 ounces of gold a year, but ramping up. I mean, these things take years to ramp up. One of the issues with them, single asset, although single asset as in the mine right now is a single asset. They have lots of exploration projects all around. They have a big building where they can extract the gold, but this was a heap leach project. This has always been a heap leach. They mine the rock, they crush it, they pile it up, and then they pour chemicals on it, and the chemicals drift down through the rock, and then they pull them out at the bottom, and they process, the solution that comes out. They get the gold. Okay, so everything was going great. We were up there on a Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. I was there, and we visited the campsite. We went up the mining roads and saw the mining ledges and the waste pile over there. We didn't go over to the heap leach itself. You could see it from, where we were. Everything was fine. This was Saturday. And then Monday morning, we wake up and, it's like, whatever, 5:30 in the morning. The heap leach failed, you might say. It basically had a landslide, and they've been piling things up, pouring fluids on it. It failed. Why did it fail? Nobody knows. I sure as hell don't know. I'm not going to play instant engineer Monday morning quarterback on this thing. I can't tell you why, but it failed, and there was a big, massive slide of this heaped up leach material, and it was fairly extensive. I mean, gravity does what it does. It rolled down a hill into a valley and down. It was all on site, though. It's all inside the fence line. The company released a press release and said, we had a heap leach failure. And we have lost certain amounts of containment. I don't know how much containment they lost, but as I understand it, nothing has left the fence line. Everything is still inside. There were no deaths, no injuries. So we're providential. We're thankful for that. So this is an industrial accident with an environmental angle. It's First Nations land, obviously. So they are deeply concerned with, water resources, air, land, et cetera. 500 people work there. They have 500 full-time employees and, other part-time employees or, contract employees. They are the largest single private employer in the Yukon, which is popular. Yukon, you could fit about, 7 or 8 Pennsylvanias in the Yukon. And Yukon has a population of 40,000. Half of them are in Whitehorse. The other one here scattered all over the place. This is the largest single private employer in the Yukon. Easily one of the largest power users, electric power users, one of the largest buyers of everything, in bulk, the food for the camp and diesel fuel and what have you. So when you lose your heap leach pad and you can't process, and you're out of the gold business, your single asset. So this is a problem. And so they stopped trading shares right after news broke of this industrial accident. So nothing traded. Then the next morning, boom, it opened down, like just fell off a cliff. Grand Canyon, sort of a drop. Oh golly, it lost, I don't know, 90% of its market cap, like in the opening bell, basically. And it's drifted down as the days have gone by. The company has not released information. It's not fair to speculate. I am sure, knowing the people who are there, I am sure they are working heaven and earth and buckets of midnight oil and everything else to figure out what's going on, when it happened, where we go from here. So, this couple of lessons here. I mean, I watched this thing, as I said, grow and develop. I watched them build it. I was there at the first gold pour and everything else. I have always thought very, very highly of the management, the technical skills, the competencies, and everything else. Why did the heap leach fail? I don't know. It's not for me to speculate. It's just not fair. It is what it is. The market reacted the way it did. And so there is a risk, obviously, in, great big single asset plays, when something critical fails. And so, bad things happen to good people. And again, for what we know right now, it's not enough to really go beyond speculating. Now, what I do want to say is that there's a whole lot of other things happening in the Yukon. I mean, I didn't just visit Victoria Gold. I visited numerous other places, exploration plays, very, very early stage exploration plays, mid-stage, advanced stage, early stage development, mid-stage development plays. There's a lot going on in the Yukon. I mean, dozens of companies, hundreds and hundreds of people spending millions of dollars on just, grassroots and brownfield type exploration. And they are finding ounces of gold and silver and pounds of copper and, all sorts of other things, So, I don't want to, there is a big problem with Victoria Gold, but you don't want to let that scare you away from, the rest of what is happening in the Yukon. By the time a lot of these junior plays, these explorers or early stage developers, by the time they get to a point where it's their turn to, turn it into a mine, the regulatory structure will be there. They'll by then have figured out what happened. A lot of the things that are being discovered and being worked up in the Yukon right now are not going to be heap leach plays. They're going to be a whole different way of extracting. Obviously you have to dig a hole and mine the rock and everything else, but in terms of just the mechanical separation or the chemical separation of the ores or the elements from what you have, it's different to what we see in Victoria. So that's really kind of the intro or the outline of kind of what happened. And again, I just want to emphasize that, I was there. I saw things. I saw it intact on Saturday morning, and then on Monday they had the landslide. And there have been photographs floating around that people may have seen them on, the Northern Miner newspaper, for example, had big, headline photograph of it. And some of the, Canadian media picked it up. U.S. media have not really followed it all that much. And again, providential, no deaths, no injuries. So this is a straight out industrial accident contained inside the fence line, as far as we know. And it will not resolve quickly. I mean, it's not going to be just throw the switch and we're back on. It's going to take a lot of investigating, a lot of thinking, a lot of review by a lot of different levels of, local, provincial government, federal government, First Nations. The lawyers will have a field day.
Right. Okay, that was a great and very helpful explanation of what's going on there. And I didn't want to create a whole downer situation here, but I did think you're the perfect person to go through that with us. So that was very informative.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
to,
thanks.
yeah,
I've followed it for years, and I was as shocked as anyone. Like, how did that happen? How, and the answer is I do not know, and it's not fair. It's not my role to speculate. So, I don't know. And if you're out there watching, don't pretend that you know either, and be careful. Be careful, what you read on the interweb and all that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of just, raw, rank speculation out there that has no basis in anything that we actually know. So
yeah, we really,
and we must move ahead. The world is still spinning. Last I looked, and so we got to move ahead.
on maybe a brighter note. So as you mentioned, this wasn't the only part of the Yukon tour that you were on. There's a whole lot else going on up there. Are there any highlights that you would share from other companies that you visited or saw?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we visited Banyan Gold, for example, which is a mid-stage explorer. They've done really well. There's 7 million ounces of gold that they've drilled up. Much of which is amenable to mechanical separation as opposed to heap leaching. Had a really nice visit in the White Gold district, which is right next to the coffee deposit. And coffee is owned by Newmont. They're trying to sell it, but I had never been to the White Gold district before. Beautiful geology going on there. Really a nice exploration play. Metallic minerals is up there. They are literally right next to the Hecla, which used to be Alexco, but they got bought by Hecla. And so they're sort of like the other half of the Keno Hill area, the Keno Hill being a property that's been mined since, the 1920s or 30s, 90, 100 years of lead, silver, somewhat, and some zinc mining up there. Beautiful place. Talked with the people at, for example, Snowline Gold, which has been a real hot mover the last, couple of years. Really super nice work they've done on what they call the Valley deposit. They recently released a resource of 7 million ounces, and that has to grow. I mean, just the acreage is there, the rock is there, sheeted veins, what they're called. You have a big granodiorite pluton. It's heavily fractured. It's kind of like if you took a big ream of paper, like you'd stick in the printer or something like that, and the paper has, obviously there's sheets of paper, but this thing is fractured in a way, and along the fractures you've got gold bearing quartz all through it. When you look at some of the drill core that comes out of that, these sheeted veins are just one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. And it's there, and the gold is there, and so the resource is there, and again, quartz in gold, classic mechanical separation. You don't need much chemistry. You need some water and a few, nothing too fancy to. I mean, you have to do a lot of mechanical engineering. It's not easy, but but again, this is not a heap leach situation. And then on the larger scale, again, I visited, and I've probably been following these guys for 10 years as well, Western Copper and Gold, WRN, Western Copper and Gold. They trade on the New York Exchange. A big share owner with those guys is a company that you may have heard of. It's called Rio Tinto. And this has to be one of the largest undeveloped but developable copper, gold, and other metals place in North America. I mean, across Canada, U.S., down in Mexico, this thing's huge. Just based on what they know for the volumes that they're talking. I mean, you're looking at a 60 to 100 year mine life for this thing. So this is the kind of thing, if you're a company like Rio Tinto, you don't need tiny little plays. You need big stuff that can move your needle. The Western Copper, the WRN, great management team. They're really doing great work. Rio Tinto moves at its own speed. Big company. It's like, turning the big oil tanker in the ocean or something takes miles to, turn around or whatever. Eventually Rio Tinto is going to, pull the trigger, or, somebody else could come along and say, if you don't do it, if you don't want to dance with these folks, I will. So I view Western right now as a very low risk play. You buy it, you put it in your hip pocket, you put it in some retirement account, and you don't need to worry about it. Just the market goes up, the market goes down, whatever. But the metal is there, and it must be developed. A couple of things that have to happen, and they're in planning. They actually need a power connection between the Yukon grid and the British Columbia electric grid. Right now, Yukon runs on its own grid. They have hydropower backed up by diesel generators for when everybody decides to plug in their electric vehicles. At the same time, the diesel generators kick in and they plug their electric vehicles off the diesel generator. I'm not kidding. That is how it works up there. Not too long ago, I think it was Christmas, everybody in Whitehorse all turned on their electric ovens at the same time to cook their turkeys, and they blacked the whole place up. So they have a power problem in the Yukon in general. They need a 200-kilometer connecting line to hook up into the BC grid. That's in process. Everything takes longer and costs more than what you expect. But once they get that, they will have the electric power they need to really develop the Western copper. That's called the Casino Project. Casino, like a gambling place, although there's no gamble here. We know what's in the rocks. We know what's down in the ground. And then better road networks and stuff. But in terms of what you can do and see and develop and evolve, in the Yukon, there are plenty of exploration plays up there, really promising. Great geology, fabulous geology, just endless geology. A lot of really good people, really nice work between the Yukon Geologic Survey and industry. There's good, solid academic, geology support up there. So it's really, it's a great jurisdiction in which to work, and there are a lot of great companies up there.
Okay, really good Yukon update. And just staying for a little bit longer on our kind of Western Canada theme, you'd mentioned before we turned the camera on that Golden Triangle remains an area of interest for you. So I thought to ask about that as well and what you're keeping an eye on there.
The one that really, two that really pop into my head, I guess, is Dolly Varden. Wonderful silver play, very undervalued in my view, silver play compared with many other silver plays. They are drilling up a storm. They've been, this is, when you're in the Golden Triangle, you're very weather dependent. You can't do anything until the snow melts. You can't do much when the snow shows up in the fall. They've had a really aggressive drilling program up to now, which is early July. So they're way, way, way ahead of schedule, and they're going to be drilling more. And they're finding really great widths with really great, grams per ton of silver and gold. They have one project called the Homestake Project, which is in the Golden Triangle. I'm not talking Homestake in like South Dakota, but the grams per ton of gold are just eye popping. It's unbelievable. So this is a silver play with a really high gold upside. And another play that it's very small. It's under everybody's radar, and they are just in the process of a merger right now. It's called Black Wolf, and they're merging. They are changing their name to Next Gold, NEXGOLD. I think the ticker is going to be NEXG. A superb exploration play. I actually sitting on my desk, and I don't have this here just because I'm talking with you. This has been sitting on my desk for months. I visited the site last August, and I picked up a rock and I took it down to the core shack and we chopped it open and just see what's in there. This is a silver-rich galena. It's lead with a really high silver content. This is just one example of the kind of ore that they have there. The grayish-looking stuff. Maybe it doesn't show up that well on the camera, but trust me, it's there. It's a silver-rich galena. There's a whole lot of it, and they've got numerous other things, but Black Wolf, which is about to become Next Gold, NEXG, it's just a really nice early stage exploration play. that looks like it could really, develop itself in that Golden Triangle area. The Golden Triangle is the home of these beautiful mines. Bruce Jack, for example, just where they're drilling cores where the gold is so dense in the cores that the diamond bit has trouble getting through. That's a nice problem to have, So, so that those are some comments there on. I'm very optimistic about the prospects for a lot of these exploration plays in those regions. Yes.
Okay, very good to get an update there as well. And we're in Canada Day week. We're after Canada Day, but it's the week of Canada Day, so I feel like it's a very good theme. So really, really nice to go through that. And I also, of course, want to check in on gold itself with you. So the gold price. I believe when we had talked earlier this year, you were saying 2,500 could be where gold gets to in 2024. And definitely that looks like it's in sight at this point. So what are your thoughts on where gold goes from here? Have you updated your target, or is that still what you're looking for?
Oh, I'm still, kind of, 25 by 25, 2,500 by 2025, which is, not quite 6 months from now. When we say that the price of gold is going up, the price of silver is going up, what we also mean is that the value or the purchasing ability of your dollar, the US dollar or the Canadian dollar, is declining. So why is that? Well, hey, look around. My government, your government, US government, Canadian government spend more than they got. They're spending lots of debt. Just issue those bonds, and you want to do something, yeah, great. So U.S. government right now is $35 trillion in debt, the national debt, and that doesn't count the off the book stuff, Social Security and Medicare and all that stuff that'll go out for the next 75 years. Then you get into the $100 and something trillion of debt. Now, is that ever going to get paid? I mean, give me a break. No, it's like we're looking at numbers that are way more than the gross domestic product of the country. So, everybody in the country could work for free for like a year and a half, and that would barely, pay off the debt. But then everybody would work for free and nobody would have any money. So, yeah, it's a ridiculous thought, but if you carry it to the logical conclusion. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is that you protect your wealth, you protect yourself with hard assets, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, energy in the ground, or, oil, gas, uranium. Actually, don't discount coal either, for as much as people don't like coal because, coal is evil carbon. Coal is still a growing energy source across the world. That maybe we're using less and less in the US or Canada because we're shutting down old thermal power plants. But for every pound of coal or every ton of coal that we don't burn in the US or Canada, they put it on a boat and off it goes to China, or off it goes to, someplace else. So, so hard assets are protection. Gold prices and silver prices being where they are have really benefited the exploration and the development industry. You haven't seen it yet really in most of the share prices of these companies. I expect that to happen, sooner or later. Right now they're all in bargain basement, buy mode in terms of accumulating shares. But the macro picture for the U.S., massive government, spending deficits every year, $1 trillion of debt every 100 days or so. And it's a spending machine that's just it's kind of what was the Sorcerer's Apprentice, that remember the Walt Disney movie where the little thing was he opened the valves and the water was coming and he couldn't close the valves and just kept coming. Well, that's the spending machine, certainly in the U.S. And so we are looking at, no matter, whether it's Biden, whether it's somebody else besides Biden, whether it's Trump, they are, the next year, whoever shows up to, become U.S. president on January 20th of 2025 is, they're going to raise their hand, take the oath, put it down, and they're just going to be looking at an absolute, fiscal monetary mess. we have good news. The good news is high interest rates, because if you save money, you're actually getting 4 and 5% on your money. The bad news is high interest rates, because anything that has to do with debt, buying a house, buying a car, borrowing money for other, you do have to be able to service that debt. And so Jim Rickards and we talk fairly regularly. We are still looking at gold as a certainly a long-term buy, a long-term protector of your wealth. We are in the early innings of what's going on here. When people say, "Oh, well, gold might go to 5,000 or 7,000," yeah, it might. And you want to be careful living in that world too, because if gold was to go to, pick a number, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, you'd feel good if you own gold, but you'd feel bad when you go to the grocery store, because a gallon of milk would be, oh my God, would be outrageous, or a gallon of gasoline would be, holy smokes, you haven't seen that number before. So we want to be careful. We want to be, you want to invest wisely. Just you definitely want to own precious metals, not gold certificates, not gold trading thing. You want to own some real live gold, silver, for yourself, for your family, for your wealth preservation. And then if you want to trade in and out of the gold instruments or the silver instruments, you can do that. They are trades, but they are generally going to be rising trades. I think I don't see what, aside from like a massive stock market crash or something, I don't see what could really bring gold, silver prices down and bring them down for long. I mean, if there's a big market crash, we wake up one morning and sell, Mortimer, sell, from that movie, Trading Places. If you wake up one morning and that happens, then yeah, gold, silver, they're going to drop too, because people are going to need money to pay off their margin calls. So you sell what you can sell, not what you want to sell, and they'll sell their gold. The gold will drop, the silver will drop, but then it's going to shoot back up again and recover quickly. Whereas your orange juice futures might not do that well.
Okay, I think that's all really good context. And I have a follow-up question on the gold equity side. So you mentioned explorers and developers maybe not seeing the interest that we would hope for just yet. And one thing I've started to hear is, we've got Q2 results coming up for the producers, gold and silver producers. And I've heard some people starting to say, okay, we've had a good quarter for gold and silver prices, so they should have good results. Maybe this is when more mainstream people start to wake up. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, I neglected to discuss that earlier, so I'm glad you brought that up. Explorers and developers, by definition, are exploring and developing. They're not producing. Producers, by definition, are producing. Well, they've been producing now for 3 months during this $2,200, $2,300, $2,400 gold mode, and which is more than a year ago when they were selling it for $1,800 and $1,900. That extra $300 and $400 is going to show up, obviously in their sales number. Some of it will be eaten up by higher fuel costs, higher labor costs, higher costs for concrete, steel, machinery, electric wire, all this stuff. Yeah, but a lot of that extra $300, whatever, is going to go down to the bottom line. We should see really sweet numbers on the profitability of many gold producers. Barrick, Newmont, Kinross, IAMGOLD. I mean, we could make a long list. We should see really good numbers. If you don't see really good numbers, you better ask yourself what's going on with that company, because what are they doing with all the money? And so when Wall Street starts to see big profit jumps, big percentage drop, that will probably begin to attract some of that other nervous money over there. People they made their money on Nvidia, they made their money on all the other things, Facebook, Meta, or Alphabet, Google, what have you. They made their money over on the tech side, but now they're worried about where's everything going here. And people are already taking some of that tech money, biotech money, crypto money. They're taking some of that and they're putting it into the equities. We just haven't seen it in the general rising tide. But I do think that big Wall Street, so to speak, will absolutely have to rebalance some of that cash, towards the hard assets, and in particular, gold, silver producers. I should also mention that some of the junior explorers, junior and the developer people who I've talked to, they will come out and tell you, they won't give you the names because they're under confidentiality agreements, but they tell you that, with $30 and $32 silver and with, $2,300 gold, et cetera, they in their project, they are getting a lot more and a lot frequent and a lot more intense visits from, the big guys who come along to say, hey guys, what do you have here? Let's, open the data room. Let's look at the books here and see what you can show us.
Okay, that's quite encouraging, and that'll be something to keep an eye on, definitely. So I always love getting caught up on gold and precious metals, but I have an energy-related topic to go over with you as well. And I'm a little bit late on this, but I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, we started to see, I think, conversations circulating online about the end of the petrodollar due to this conclusion of an agreement between the US and Saudi Arabia. And we've kind of talked about this type of energy-related theme before. So I thought to ask you, I think people have a lot of questions about this. They wonder what's actually going on there. What does it mean? So what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, I'm old enough to remember when the petrodollar happened. I was in college at the time. It was back in the early '70s, mid '70s. Golly, the price of oil increased dramatically after 1971 when Nixon went off the gold standard. Not an unrelated issue. Inflation kicked in. All the Vietnam War inflation was boiling over into the '70s. So the Saudis and the rest of OPEC, raised the price of oil, and they started to rake in a lot of cash, a lot of U.S. dollars. And the question was, what are we going to do with it? Henry Kissinger and the U.S. Treasury side of things went over to Saudi Arabia and said, listen, we will, if you guys just price oil in dollars, we, the USA, we will promise to defend you. I mean, that actually led to Desert Shield, Desert Storm in 1990-91 when Iraq invaded Kuwait and then threatened to take over northern Saudi Arabia. I mean, there was a big element of, defending. We promised to defend you, and we're sending the army to do that. One of the things that had to happen, one of the reasons why the Saudis agreed to price oil in dollars and accept U.S. defense promises and everything else, they needed something to do with the dollars. The Saudis were making so much money back then that they couldn't spend it fast enough. You might think, well, how do you not be able to spend it fast enough? Okay, they could face it. So they recycled it to the U.S. and bought U.S. treasuries. That was really the origin of the petrodollar, that you sell oil for dollars, OPEC sells oil for dollars. Most of the world's oil is traded in dollars, and all these dollars are floating around in the world. They may never, show up at Washington, D.C. or in New York City banks or anything, but, we're using dollars to fund the world oil system. Okay, that worked for many, many, many decades. In the last, 10 years or so, the U.S. has gotten sanction crazy, and we're sanctioning Russia, sanctioning China, sanctioning Iran, sanction this, sanction that, lots of things. And the rest of the world has sort of said, wait a minute, we're using these U.S. dollars, but every time we try to trade them or move them around or whatever, you shut the bank off, or you put restrictions and penalties on us. So the world is de-dollarizing. People have probably heard that. Now, here's the thing. Much of the world's trade is still denominated in dollars. And you can say, well, but that's going to end. Well, it's not going to end like that. It's not going to just sort of fall off a cliff one night. It will decline, gradually. Something has to take its place. I mean, the rest of the world, they'll just trade in their own local currencies. Well, no, they won't. I mean, Russia sold oil to India for the last couple of years, because of sanctions on Russian oil following Ukraine. Russia wound up with a whole lot of Indian rupees they didn't know what to do with. And it's going, and they're trying to figure this out. Now there's that BRICS thing out there, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They keep talking about, we're going to come up with a BRICS currency. Well, yeah, okay, they probably will. They're going to come up with a BRICS unit. It's going to be, I think it's going to be called a unit. And they're going to start trading in that. And it might have a gold component or a silver component, energy component, other commodity component to it. But there is no, when you say that the petrodollar is dying, well, that's true in the sense that, we're all dying. I mean, we're all going to die someday. But just not today, not tomorrow, not tonight, not tomorrow morning. And so I think that the U.S. and its petrodollar issue will continue, and it will be problematic. But until you have something that can replace the world trade system in a big way with deep credit markets, with a legal system where if you promise to do something, you can enforce a promise to get things done. Until that happens, the petrodollar isn't going to just vanish. Now, the good news there is that since it's not going to just fall off a cliff one night, we're not going to wake up one morning and it's going to be like, oh, no, your money's no good. It does give enough opportunity to the U.S. in particular, but the West in general, because Canada is part of this and Europe is a basket case, but they need to get their act together. And Japan as well, Australia, New Zealand. It gives the West an opportunity to up its game in terms of the quality of governance and the quality of building societies and really building economies that can work. And it kind of gets back to like what Winston Churchill, I think, said about the United States, that the Americans in the end always wind up doing the right thing after trying everything else along the way. Words to that effect. So if you're in the West and you don't feel like packing your bags and moving to some distant country and on the far side of the planet, and you want to keep you want to keep your lifestyle and keep a standard of living and keep moving along. It's time to buckle down, get serious, and invest well. Educate your kids, and insist on people being able to do things and get things done. That's sort of like soapbox kind of stuff. But the question was, what's going to happen to the petrodollar when they say that the Saudi agreement to use petrodollars expired on June 4th or June 9th, or whatever that was. Yeah, that was the anniversary of the original deal, the 50th anniversary, and the Saudis, well, no, we're not going to renew it. Well, okay, but right now the Saudis don't have any surplus dollars to buy U.S. bonds anyhow. Kind of like they get money selling oil, they get dollars selling oil, and then they turn around, they spend them all on their own internal development projects. Whether it's funding all the princes and all that whole Game of Thrones that goes on in Saudi, or whether it's just investing in other things that they invest in. I mean, the Saudis, they want to build an automotive industry, they want to build a minerals industry. They want to build that big city out in the middle of the desert, that big huge, the linear 100 or 1,000 foot tall city or something. It's crazy architectural stuff. When I say crazy, it's not like off. Definitely out there. So they don't have any surplus dollars to invest back in U.S. bonds anyhow. So in a way, the original deal was you price oil in dollars, and then when you get a bunch of dollars, you buy U.S. treasuries. That hasn't been the case in many years, at any rate. So the Saudis are definitely going to continue using dollars. They're still going to be banking in dollars. They're going to be buying and selling a lot of things in dollars and yuan, Chinese yuan, and rubles and euros, and who knows what else. They make deals to sell oil for whatever currency that some other country might have. So it's not an apocalyptic scenario. And again, in terms of investors out there, what are you going to do? Well, look after yourself, man. Look after yourself. Look after your family. Preserve your wealth. Try to find things with upside. Gold, silver, energy, hard assets are the place to, are one key element of the foundation to, maintaining everything.
Okay, I think that sounds like a great place to wrap up. Some really good takeaways, unless you had anything else you wanted to add.
No. Just
we did it.
Be prepared for surprises as the summer rolls on. I mean, as we speak, Joe Biden is still the U.S. president. But last night I dialed up the New York Times on the internet, and I read the New York Times, so you don't have to. The entire front page, except for one article about like watermelons, the entire front page was nothing but negative articles about Biden. So, I mean, there is definitely a movement to give him the heap ho, and we will see when, where, and how it unfolds. Clearly, they set Biden up in the debate with Trump so that he could go out there and either make it or break it. Show your stuff, Joe. Well, he showed his stuff, and now, I mean, a couple of days later, it's kind of like Joe's got to go, you smile at it because it's a problem that they walked them. So they definitely walked right into that wall, didn't they? So we'll see how it unfolds. I mean, how will this internal schism of the Democrat Party play out? And be prepared for surprises, though. Don't think that everything in this world is linear. Things go exponential. Things go, logarithmic. Things go asymptotics. There are very few straight lines in nature.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much for went through a lot of ground here. So thank you very much. Always great to have you on.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Of course. And once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and this is Byron King. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a comment below.